Hello, Bible readers. Does God need our sacrifices? This is an ancient Star Trek question. I think it's Star Trek V when Spock's brother is asked, "What does God need with a starship?" It probably doesn't actually relate as much for you as it does in my head, but it is the question Psalm 50 is trying to get at. Does God need our sacrifices? Like, what are our sacrifices for? That's what Psalm 50 is concerned with through and through. Maybe it's a little much for us to try to really get into, imagine what the sacrificial system was like that the temple ran. I'm not going to pretend to be some expert about it, but I have read enough things, I guess, by actual experts. In a very simple nutshell version that I would hope no one would hold me to, basically people were expected to make a sacrifice, a burnt offering, oftentimes, to the Lord. And of course, the Lord dwells, from temple theology, the Lord dwells in the temple. So different holidays, different festivals would require different sacrifices. So when the grain harvest festival happened and everybody came to town to sell their grain, you might bring your first fruits. I think that would have been expected. At another festival, you might bring like a spring festival, you might bring a little baby lamb. And just imagine how that all worked. Like, you're in line with, I would think, hundreds, maybe more, of people to get into the part of the temple where the priests are and are doing the sacrifices. The temple is a huge complex, right? Animals, people, everywhere. They'd have been everywhere. And in turn, poor people are bringing pigeons because that was more affordable, while some of the wealthier people might be bringing in like an ox by, holding the ox along. And the whole point of what everybody was doing is to make this offering a sacrifice. My favorite stewardship book, Giving to God, the author, Dr. Mark Allen Powell, when he tries to explain part of what this all looks like and feels like, he's like, just imagine these animals and all this grain, they are your wealth. Like, you don't have money in a bank. These people did not have stock market shares to check on their phones. They have no 401k waiting for them someday. These animals, this produce, this is it. This is their livelihood. And then, so let's say you're one of these people and you bring this grain to God, where God dwells, the temple, and there the priest takes it and doesn't bless your wealth, your animals, and send you on your way. They kill your animals. They burn your grain as a sacrifice. It would be like us bringing wads of cash to church, bring it to the altar table, hand it over to me, and right in front of you, I just light it on fire. It's a sacrifice, So what is this about? Well, just in case anyone thought, as they did in some rival local religions in the ancient Near East, in case any Israelites thought they were offering sacrifices in order to get God's grace and mercy to come to them, Psalm 50 was written to clarify things. Because that was the idea, the general idea for most cultures. Sacrifice this or that kind of thing, or animal, or person even, and the God of this or the God of that will be generous. Do something for the gods, and they'll hopefully do something for you. Very quid pro quo. One of the things that does, of course, is it very much personifies God. Almost as my commentary, my Brueggemann and Bellinger commentary talk about it, it almost idolizes, it pulls God down from being God and just makes God into another, really, a person. Because transactions, that's how people work, right? You do this, I'll do that for you. But this one true God, revealed to the Hebrew people, it's not about transactions, it's about transformation. And God does that through relationship, not through you burn stuff for me, I smell it or eat it or whatever, and now I'll do stuff for you. God works transformation through relationship, namely the covenant God makes with the people at Mount Sinai. The authors of Psalm 50 want to make this as clear as they can, and they do it quite cleverly through a psalm that was undoubtedly used in worship services. This psalm is actually a bridge between the Korahite psalms that went through Psalm 49 and what will be more Davidic psalms starting with Psalm 51. And this psalm incorporates pieces of this theology we've been working with that really does still ground things in God is present, really present in the temple, and with kind of other ways of Davidic psalms talking about, and having been in God's presence, we are sent to work God's justice, to be God's justice. And so it's likely that there was a time, at least once a year, when the people remembered, when they celebrated the covenant God had made with Israel at Mount Sinai. And so there's a whole group of psalms, and this is one of them, that is centered around covenant theology. And all of those psalms really do dwell in how important the relationship with God is to worship and to our behaviors and ethics. So they would remember the covenant in worship, right? I mean, we celebrate as Christians every year the birth of Jesus. We remember we are dust, and to dust we shall return. We remember the Last Supper, Jesus washing the feet of his disciples, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, lots of things. Well, this community remembered, among many other things, that their God made a relationship with them, that their God is not a God of transaction, but a God of transformation, that God made a covenant relationship. And nowhere in that covenant relationship did God ever say, and in order for me to grant you rich harvests, you must sacrifice 48 pigeons in 24 hours every third month of the year, or whatever. Instead, they were all working from the covenant made with Moses that was a continuation of this faith relationship that God had made with Abraham long before that, right? When God promised Abraham and his descendants land, descendants, and that through them, there and beyond there, they would be a blessing to the whole world. God would be with them. That was the point of the covenant. So where does sacrifice come in? How is it to be regarded? Well, check out verse 23. Those who bring thanksgiving as their sacrifice honor me. Sacrifice isn't a way to get God to do something. It is a sign of thanks that God has done many things. Creation, deliverance, ongoing blessings, etc. Giving, we don't typically call it sacrifice as much as we call our gifts giving, is thanks to be done with joy. Not a begrudging payment handed over to God, done with dread. The things God knows well, and this is how our generous God works, the thing God knows well is that joy of giving leads to more giving, which leads to broader justice offered, which leads to greater mercy and more steadfast love offered. So when we give joyfully, it just changes the way all of these relationships work. So do give, but not to manipulate God. Do it out of a sense of joy for all you have had, have now, and will have. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.